Okay. Hey everybody. Alright, so I got some things to talk about in terms of Revulsion and how things are going to go next and what I've got going on. So, in the general discussion, I added a new thread and pinned it to the top, which talks about free DLC content patch. And this is basically, uh, a tentative list of things that will happen provided momentum as far as sales and stuff like that can continue. If the game sales decline, then I won't really be able to do a content patch of this nature because it's basically doubling the size of the game, essentially. Um, Probably more, but it would be a lot of content. I simply won't be able to do it if things decline too much. So, anyway, let me go ahead and just read this because it's probably better for me to say it or to read it than to just say it. I'm going to have to make a video and talk about the. Okay, that's what I'm doing right now. But below list of is a list of potential things. Great. The bug's already starting. But below is a list of potential things I may be working on, provided I can maintain momentum as far as sales continue. None of the stuff in the below list is set in stone, and the only way I will be able to further work on these things is if the game continues to sell well enough to fund the project further. If sales decline too much, and yada yada, I guess I've already pretty much explained that. Um, So I'm going to be trying to get more people to check the game out. So I'm going to try and find YouTubers and streamers. I already have a few that that I have in mind that I might try to talk to. It's all going to have to happen this week. I'm also going to see if I can contact Epic and get the game put on the Epic Games launcher, marketplace, if that's at all possible. I'm not really sure how that'll pan out, but I'm gonna try, a few different vectors if I can to be able to put the game out there. If you enjoy the game and would like to see the following things added in a free DLC patch for Revulsion, then getting the game out to more people would greatly help. Any suggestions to promote Revulsion would be great as well. I'm definitely looking for any ideas for promotion, stuff like that. Like I don't want to end up having to like ask somebody to like, hey, do you think you can post about the game on Reddit somewhere? Because as far as I can tell, anytime I've ever tried to mention the game on Reddit myself, I usually get immediately called a shill and told to basically just kill myself. Basically, I haven't really had very much luck. Like maybe I just haven't tried in the right places or the right times, or I don't know whose palms I need to grease or whatever. But it seems to be that like the only way to get Revulsion like mentioned on Reddit is if somebody else does it, not me, but like another person posts about it, and that seems to be it. I'm not gonna go out. I'm not gonna go ahead and like ask anyone specifically to do it, but nudge, nudge. Wink, wink. If anyone is up for the task, feel free. I'm definitely not going to tell you no. You can't do that. Um, and just remember too, the bar for success is very low. Like, it's I don't need to sell at least 10,000 copies. Like we're talking like 10 copies a week, like minimum would be more than it would be would well I guess that would be actually minimum. That would be uh pretty low, but it would be somewhat manageable for actually doing this kind of content. So the new content is a character attribute system. This is one of the things that was mentioned in one of the reviews, and I definitely think that there's room for it, and it wouldn't really be terribly hard to set up. It would just take a little bit of time to do, um, but this would have to also come at the cost of your starting stats for all three of your characters. In other words, uh, if I add, when or if I add this feature, you'll notice that like when you start the game, your base stats for each of the classes will probably be lower to make up for the fact that now you're going to be able to spend points maybe once every 5 levels or something like that to upgrade the stats of your character. So you can increase your attack, you can increase your movement, you can whatever you want, but I'll have to lower your base stats for everything. A new character class, and I've already talked about this one. The character class would be a depraved sort of archetype. Depraved isn't necessarily going to be the name that I could consider it. I might call it something else, and then the final thing, because depraved is something that is pretty much right out of Dark Souls. It's kind of the same exact thing from Dark Souls, actually. Depraved starts off with the lowest base stats, but has the most attribute points available. So if you do level a depraved character, long term you'll have like potentially the most powerful character of the other characters, but it's a much more arduous journey in order to achieve that. And item quality is now durability. So those green bars on all of the items and stuff like that, the quality, like when you fire the gun a certain amount of times, it actually costs a certain amount of that quality, and if the quality reaches zero, the item breaks. And when you're wearing armor and you take damage, that quality value degrades. If you die, all of the stuff that you have on your character and in your inventory's quality also degrades. Um, so it's a very difficult mode. It changes some of the rules right out of the gate. I might introduce a new mechanic that allows you to replenish the durability of an item, but I'm not really sure yet exactly how that would, how I would do it. Maybe it would cost a raw animus or some insanity like that. Not really sure, but it would end up being something along the, maybe you have to have like 1,000 gun parts to repair a gun or some insane. I'm not really sure exactly how I want to do it yet. It really all comes down to like um, how I feel, like what feels better for balance and stuff like that down the line. Starting weapon is Old Rusty Pistol, which is the worst weapon in the game. It's so bad, it's not even in the game technically right now, but some people from like very, very early versions of the game before it was even close to being finished might remember that there was an Old Rusty Pistol in the game. And it was pretty weak. Uh, so the Depraved class would start off with a terrible weapon as well. New open world levels. So um, the open world levels will not be new missions, but rather slightly larger interconnected levels that flow almost exactly like a Dark Souls style game. In other words, these aren't missions. Each of these are actually like the Ancient Abyss will have like a doorway that goes to Ground Zero or maybe even Hell's Watch. And like if you take a wrong turn, you might end up fighting level 30 or 40 monsters when you're only like level 5. It very much in the vein of just you kind of have to figure out which way is forward, and I will provide you with methods and ways on the map to find doors that you have to unlock and things like that. But it's sort of more open ended a little bit, and there's like different directions you can go, and some directions will lead to places that are way over leveled. Some directions will lead to places that you'll end up revisiting places that you've already seen from different angles, and that's the goal. That's the idea, and that's basically that. And um, there's really much more to add to it. It's exactly that style. So it's different from what's currently in the game right now. But it's not something I haven't done in the past already. This was actually closer to how the original iteration of the game was when I was prototyping it way back in like a year ago. Um, I ended up going away from this direction because when people played the game, I saw them getting lost, and I worried too much that um, people were not liking it. That they, but now that I've actually seen people play the game and their sort of reaction towards the random generation stuff and their reaction to the existing levels, I almost feel like it would have been way better for me to have just stuck to this in the first place. So that's basically what I'm going to be doing. Um, having like all handcrafted stuff where you could take that one fatal wrong turn, and now you got to get your stuff back in an area that you weren't supposed to go to and stuff like that. I actually kind of want to see how people react to that instead of what I actually chose to do, which is the more mission based or mission oriented content that already exists, that exists now. That's the direction I took things because I felt it was a safer direction for the game to go. But in all honesty, I don't know if that's necessarily true anymore. Um, Now that I actually get a chance, okay, I'm repeating myself. Uh, so you will have a semi-linear path, but it will allow you to explore and branch out as you get to higher levels. These levels will become the backbone of the game, where you will search them to unlock missions and challenges. Okay, so basically all the missions that exist right now, after adding this to the game, all of the missions that exist now would be unlocked through the advancements thingy. So basically, you would find an advancement that actually unlocks a mission, and then the mission itself would give you a key, either key cards or artifacts or something like that. And then there will be doors in the game that will only open if you have that key card or that artifact. Don't worry, the key cards and the artifacts don't drop on death or anything like that. But you know what I mean. So it's just very much a kind of yeah. I actually kind of like referenced maybe sort of having it flow a little bit like a not so much just like a Souls-like, but like a Metroidvania or something. But I don't know. I think actually Souls-like is pretty much as close as it's going to ever get because that's pretty much exactly what I have in mind. Um, Monsters that spawn within these levels will likely be resistant to the element that the level has. Going into Hell's Watch with all fire damage based weapons would be a huge mistake. I also want to have not necessarily explosive barrels, but some kind of like explosive devices placed around the maps that change the character's resistance. And I might also include actions or special abilities that allow you to like drop a thing on the ground that any monster walks into it or gets hit by it, changes their resistance. So if you have a bunch of fire damage weapons and you can expend a little bit of special points, action points, I mean, and actually change their resistance to frost or ice. And thus they take more damage from your fire weapons and stuff like that. That could be kind of interesting. I kind of have an idea like that would be kind of interesting to have like that extra layer of strategy where there's this sort of like maybe there's things in the level like if a monster walks through a certain doorway or through a certain area, like it automatically changes the resistance. Maybe you can gain resistances by stepping in these same things. Like there might just be these things just sort of floating around the maps in like key locations that modify resistances either for a short time or for you know uh, permanently. I guess in the case of monsters and stuff like that. So explore semi open-ended levels to unlock missions, challenges, mission reward, include key cards. So like completing the missions that already exist instead of like some of the weapons that you might see now in or a blueprint or something like that for completing the mission, you'll see another item which is like either a key card or an artifact. And then once you have that after completing the mission, then you'll be able to go back into these levels and on the auto map, this is what I'm kind of imagining. On the auto map, it'll tell you like what doors exist on on any of the maps that you're on right now that require that artifact. Maybe there'll be a little icon or something like that, like so you can tell. Okay, well I haven't opened this door yet. I haven't gone to this one. Like after you open the door for the first time, maybe it disappears or I don't know. I'll have to see how it goes for the US UX sort of concept. Uh, and that's really about that. Additional random gen stuff. Um, some doors won't open unless you do X floors on the infinite dungeon. So you might actually find like a door that says like you have to complete 10 floors on the infinite dungeon and in order for this to open, you know what I mean, or something like that. There'll be stuff like that. I don't know, whatever I can come up with that's just creative. Like certain things require you to make offerings, like you have to put items on the ground in certain spots, and who knows? Like it'll just be kind of stuff like strewn about. It'll be very much like really old school Dark Souls, Demon Souls, maybe. So, and there will also be your occasional power node battles, additional random gen content, more variety in the current random gen content. Now that the random gen levels are smaller, more variety would make it almost feel like you're just playing different maps each time. If I added more variety, so that you don't see the same like five or six, it's about eight different potential tiles that you might run into. One new random gen tile set, the Death's Reach. Now there's a tower. I don't know how many people have noticed, but there's a tower sometimes that you can see from different levels in the game. That tower is an infinite dungeon, or could be an infinite dungeon. I always kind of imagined that it would eventually be something like that. Who knows? But um, maybe in the sequel, or I have no idea. But like in this particular case, I would take it and turn that into it. You'll notice that Death's Reach is also level 80 and 90 content with a lightning element right here. Like you'd be going on, or, around the outskirts of it, and then you would unlock the infinite dungeon, and stuff like that, and then you'd be able to do like other stuff. Just slight bit of spoilers, but I don't think there's a story. So, I mean, there is a story, but I don't think anybody's really inclined to pay attention to it. Really, um, new weapons, specials, armor, to be determined. At least one new boss battle. Be very similar to Orgrimmar, maybe following different mechanics and stuff like that, but it'll be that sort of very pattern-esque. You have to learn the pattern, the boss gets a little bit tougher, kind of a thing, sort of a boss fight type setup would definitely be on the books for something along those lines. I will likely update this list as I move forward, and all feedback is definitely welcome. So while I'm at it as well, I might as well go ahead and mention some of the things that I have planned for Friday's patch. Now, regardless of whether the game has funding or not, like if the sales drop off to zero, which I kind of actually think that's exactly what's happening at the moment. Like it was like it's not okay until all of a sudden it's not anymore. It's like all of a sudden things just sort of like just fall off. Um, there are just some basic bugs. There's still some weird stuff going on with NG, New Game Plus, Bulwark Shield placed in the ground while crouching, stuff like that. NG Plus not accounted for properly in character selection, like it doesn't tell you that you're over level 100, which is silly. NG Plus completely breaks Infinite Dungeon at the moment. That's something I'll have fixed by Friday. I'm going to go ahead and put this right here. It should have been that way in the first place, but it was just I don't know. It'll be worked out that way. Um, yeah, and then there's like the tooltips for specials and boosters is mixed up for some reason. I can get that fixed. I'm gonna try and get all these things fixed by Friday. So, with that said, there really isn't much else to really bring up. But once these things are all done, once I get all of this out of the way, which I actually think I should be able to do, um, some of these are already done. Like I don't even think the automat floats away anymore. That should be that. I should be in pretty good shape to begin, uh, you know, um, to begin maybe starting up on DLC content patch. I'll have to see how things go when, with promoting the game further. To be honest, I haven't really promoted it very much. Um, Other people have promoted it more than I have so far. But any help on this front could make a very big difference. If you're interested in seeing this sort of flow, this right here is a pretty good example. You'd be able to have I don't know, it would be pretty interesting, I think, for a lot of people to want to see a game, a first-person shooter that follows more more along these lines rather than doing missions and things of that nature. Actually having like the handcrafted experience taken to a much more handcrafted experience, like handcrafted experience plus 10, you know, of orc slaying. But yeah, I guess that's it. All right, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna end the video here. Hope you enjoyed. And this topic here is in general discussions. Although I'll probably duplicate this in the announcements, and I'm definitely up for any feedback, any suggestions, anything that people have in mind. Um, you know, anything you guys can do to help me get the word out with the game so that people know about it, and that's that really. I mean, just remember the bar for success is very low. All right, it's not going to take a huge amount, but it definitely helps. So don't feel like, oh, I really can't help that much. Like, even if all you do is you just showed a game to like a couple of friends or something, you know, and if they decide that they pick it up, then you've done a lot. Um, you know, this is not huge budget AAA kind of a situation here. This is like a little bit of word of mouth can go a very long way. So all right, I'm gonna go ahead and end the video. Um, I'll keep you guys posted on the next patch, which will be on Friday. I'm pretty sure. All right.